Guy, reports there that Boris Johnson will announce his resignation today. What do you have on the ground? What do we know?
Well, Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office, is just across the river from here, a little down the road from the Houses of Parliament. Journalists are packing out the media area outside there. They are expecting a podium to be set up at some point and for the Prime Minister to come out, and then number 10 Downing Street to announce officially in front of the British and international media that he is resigning. The Downing Street press would have gone silent for several hours this morning, not returning any calls from journalists, as the Prime Minister considered whether he was going to fight on, as he promised to do only on Wednesday evening after firing Michael Gove, a senior ally up until that point, who earlier on Wednesday had popped into 10 Downing Street to urge him to leave. And now, of course, we know the final decision. One of the arguments that Boris Johnson had been making repeatedly through the day was that his removal from office could lead to a pretty messy political situation in the United Kingdom, where a divided Conservative Party wouldn't necessarily be able to agree on a clear leader to take the party forward. But what we've seen through the last few hours is a string of further resignations after many more through the course of the week. Even Nadhim Zahawi, who was the Chancellor, brought in to replace the previous Chancellor who'd resigned earlier in the week. He'd only been in the post 36 hours. He'd been in to urge the Prime Minister to resign. He said he'd been heartbroken in his resignation statement that Prime Minister Johnson hadn't heeded that advice. He said the situation was not sustainable and was only going to become worse if he fought on. Further resignations through the morning as well. Michelle Donnellan, another senior minister who'd only been in the post for a couple of days. The Northern Ireland minister, Brendan Lewis. There are a couple of cabinet ministers who remained, but even they, for example, the Defence Minister Ben Wallace put out a statement saying he felt a sense of duty, given all that's going on in the world, to keep the motors of government functioning, but that there was a mechanism to remove Johnson if he didn't volunteer to leave, and that the party should use it. So there was a point where 58 MPs had resigned from government posts. There were 29 ministerial vacancies. The government was just not functioning properly. And in the end, despite all the uncertainty that could result from this resignation, the party clearly decided overwhelmingly that Boris Johnson should stand down anyway.
Well, Guy, so the Prime Minister had said he would fight on. So how are people reacting then to these reports that he may resign?
Well, I think the immediate concern, if he does, as is widely expected, announce formally his resignation in that statement. I've seen some reports that could happen within the next hour or so. The immediate concern will be what now? Recent precedent suggests that a caretaker Prime Minister, that the Prime Minister may stay on in a caretaker capacity until a leadership election is held, and then you might have a permanent replacement in place, for example, by August, September, October, around that sort of timeline. But in this instance, a very unusual situation. It has been a vicious fight to the end. Boris Johnson has stayed on far longer than it seems even his senior allies in cabinet positions will have wanted. And so the big question is, can he realistically be the caretaker Prime Minister, or does someone else have to step into that post on an interim basis? Who would want that role, you have to ask, at the moment, given all the drama and the infighting of the last few days? Even the permanent position isn't at all clear at the moment because of this internal division within the Conservative Party. That was one of the big arguments that Prime Minister Johnson's backers had made before he'd agreed to stand down, was that until they had formed a united position on who should permanently replace the Prime Minister, that it was not a good idea to remove him. There are obviously some senior cabinet ministers, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, another senior ally Boris Johnson, Sajid Javid, who might put themselves up. Did they stay too long in the government? Will they be seen as part of the problem? Or, given that it was ultimately their resignations earlier in the week that sort of led to Johnson's eventual downfall? Will they see themselves still as potential leadership candidates? Could it be an outsider, someone who's not really been senior within this Johnson administration? Could it be a return to a sort of unity or more traditional conservatism? There's a name, Jeremy Hunt, who's a long-standing MP with foreign policy expertise, who favours closer ties with the European Union. Who knows? It really is an open race, and potentially it could be weeks, if not months, of uncertainty ahead of us.